some of our PSC stock, and we are working our way into our next stock. Now, I have reason to believe that our ETF is going to clear by tomorrow, and we should be able to buy one more stock before the end of the month, which, if I remember correctly, might be either Orchid Island or Ellington, and I'm going to see about it. And then if we can, I'm going to let you guys know tomorrow, because I think we have one more stock for the 31st, which means I'd have to put into it tomorrow. We would be able to get it on the 30th, because when is tomorrow's Wednesday? So yeah, if what I saw was correct, you could potentially pick up one of the stocks by Friday and still be on that ex-dividend date for the 31st, which I believe is the Ellington stock. So I'm going to double check it tonight. I'm going to put that information into the membership. So if you're in the membership, you'll know about it tonight. If you're not in the membership, you'll know on the show tomorrow. And if you're interested in picking up that stock, you'll pick it up Friday. But you can always just go over the stocks that we have from our core satellite portfolio and just check them yourself and see which ones have an ex-dividend date for January 31st, and grab that, because we have Orchid Island, AG, every month, but we have a quarterly Ellington, which is EARN is a ticker for that one. I think that is the one that is due right now. Matter of fact, let me just go ahead and verify that. To see, yeah, January 30th, Ellington Credit Company, EARN, is January 30th, and that one's going to have typically 8 cents a share. And yeah, so if you're interested in that one, if you pick it up tomorrow, the 29th, the ex-dividend date is on the 30th, so you would have to get it tomorrow morning or before 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 29th, so that you are already on the ex-dividend date, you already on the record date, and then be the ex-dividend date on Friday. You would sell it on Friday. So we're going to grab that one. That's going to be the last one we're going to grab, and then we're going to be sliding into the ones that we talked to you about on Tuesday that are going to be available for Monday. I think we've got one for the 2nd, and if we do, probably grab the one on the 2nd instead, because the one for the 2nd might be a little bit more profitable. We'll see. We'll see. But if you watch Tuesday's show, you'll know which one is available for the 2nd, and you can decide whether you want 8 cents a share or whether or not you want like 35 cents a share, because it's not just the dividend when you're doing dividend rotation strategy. It is the price per share and the dividend. Because if you have a stock that's $100 a share that's giving you 10 cents a share, 10%, and you've got a stock that is $1 a share that is giving you 5 cents a share, you're going to get way more money off of the cheaper stock. So with the dividend rotation strategy, just for the sake of the one day that you're going to hold it, if you're going to grab, if you have 2 different stocks that you can't choose between because they're so close together, you can't get them both, the cheaper one per share that puts out the most dividend per same dollar amount would be the most effective one to grab, outside of paying attention to volatility. Because if it dips right before the ex-dividend date and then it's going to dip again on the ex-dividend date, you don't want to get that one versus the one that might give you less, but it'll increase as it gets to the ex-dividend date and then do a dip and then potentially increase before you sell it. So those are the 3 things that you're paying attention to. What is the market fluctuation on the growth of the stock before the ex-dividend date versus the dollar amount for the ex-dividend payout? Because if you're going to get a 15 cents per share increase on growth, and then you're getting a 5 cent per share payout on that stock, you're going to get more money per share on that stock than what you would if you had 15, 20 cents a share, 30 cents a share stock that you had to pay 10 times more to get, but it also lost dollar value before you sold it. So you want to pay attention to those things. Beyond that, we're looking at, because the 30th is on Friday, we're going to be looking at seeing whether or not the government will shut down. Because the last time I checked, earlier this week, over last weekend, the government had not gotten the whole budget together, and we might be experiencing a partial shutdown. If we do, then tax season is going to be a little bit rough for anybody who has to dispute their taxes. So kind of got to figure that part out. And that's like the only kind of updates that we really have that are important right now, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in politics, but this isn't a political platform. I don't really give a shit about politics outside of how it negatively impacts your ability to make money. So I know that if I start talking about Republicans and Democrats and stuff like that, some right wing or left wing will jump in here, and we'll have a whole long, like, CNN style discussion about their views on the people who are involved in the political process and their opinion of this person's personality and this, that, and the third. But we're never talking about how the policies impact your paycheck. And so when they talk to me, I listen to them, I respect them. I don't really have a view on the person. I have a view on the policy. And we're not talking policies. We're talking about how one person is stupid because he's doing this. Most Republicans say that Democrats are idiots. And it's like, okay, the intellectual status C's make presidents does not change the fact that the policy that messes with your paycheck is the only thing I care about. See what I'm saying? So keep that in mind whenever I start talking about politics. But because we divide the show up in two ways, we have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. That's business and finance. And Monday is one of the days where we talk about how politics impacts our paychecks and how our ability to make, save, and invest. When they start taking money out of food stamps, I let y'all know. When they mess with your WIC or your benefits of any kind, your health insurance, whatever, I let y'all know, because that's how you save and invest and take care of yourself. When they change the interest rates, that's how you invest and how you pay off your debt. This is when I talk about things. When they add tariffs or take tariffs away, that's how you buy stuff. When they do a trade contract, that's how you gain access to goods, where the supply increases. And when the supply increases, guess what? The price goes down because the demand didn't increase. So we talk about stuff like that. Investment opportunities, when Canada stopped buying alcohol from America, and now we've got, almost a year later, we've got alcohol companies going out of business and massive layoffs because they can't afford to pay their employees because a large quantity of their customer base came from Canada. The negative long-term fallout from a short-term decision last year is hurting us this year. That's what I talk about in business and politics. Now, on Tuesday, we talk about ways to make money. There are not a lot of ways to make money on the computer, but there are a lot of ways to make money on the computer. And the reason why I say it like that is because it depends on what you're good at. If you are only good at in-person manual labor stuff, there are less things on the computer that you can do if you're not tech savvy. But if you have a skill set, like if you like taking photos, all y'all young bucks running around with y'all cell phones, videotaping the police acting the ass. But if y'all actually went from the video camera to the actual photo and take Polaroid style photos of certain stuff, you could sell that to the newspaper and get money off of being on the scene. And then you could get less negative treatment from the riot squad, because instead of you being perceived from ICE as a protester stopping them from doing it, you could tell them, I'm a reporter, I'm just watching. You could still be out there, but as long as they don't see you throw a brick, they're not going to treat you the way they're treating everybody else to try to stop them from doing it. See what I'm saying? And you could, instead of just recording everything and putting it up on your TikTok, you could actually take photos of what's going on out there and sell those photos that will be used as headline photos when the news come out. So when they murk that boy, you know, a screenshot of the video became the headline. But the first person to sell that photo to the news that covered that article, that person got paid. So you don't have to know a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff. Just know that you can use some of the resources that you have and make yourself a little extra money without having to spend a bunch of money to start up a business. Because if you take good photos of good stuff that freelance, you sell that photo, like I said, to the newspaper. You go contact some of your and you can't hand it to them. You can't send them a screenshot and say, hey, I got this photo, because you gave it to them. You know, you gotta call them up, email them, let them know I got photos from that shooting if you're interested. You know, and then you gotta kind of go down there and go meet them. Or you could do a video call and show them the photos on the thing and say, I'll send them to you if I'll name your price, right? And find out which person is willing to take that offer. And when you do that, you will build a network, because you will be selling photos to the local newspaper. And you can do it to more than one paper. You can take multiple different photos and sell certain photos to some papers and sell certain photos to other papers, and give them the best video that they can use to get their articles out, because you was on the ground floor when their reporter wasn't even out there. So when their reporter covers their story, they'll use your photo. He says, I have to sign a waiver when I develop my photos. But that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. You get you gotta set it up where there's like a disclosure form of some kind, where you gotta get props for this. You know what I mean? And then when you're taking these photos and you're building your portfolio, again, this is another way to get you a good job. You can be a photographer, because you're taking photos of chaos and you're selling it to the local media. You know what I mean? But there's so many things that you can do, but there's not so many things that you can do. So we cover ways that y'all can make money, but I want to prioritize ways where you can do something that can be scaled up to the magnitude where it can be automated. And automated means that it runs itself. So you start doing it, and then you either hire somebody to do it for you and you get less money and you don't have to do anything, just watch, or you get AI to do it for you so that you're getting it done in a shorter period of time. You're able to accomplish more tasks in the same period of time that you used to do one task, or it completely does it on its own. I would love for you to have situations where you set it up and it runs on its own, right? And you just get paid because it exists. And I found out when you're doing the drop shipping stores with the ebooks, you have to contact the original manufacturer of the ebook, work out some kind of contract from that, and then for every sale that you make, you get commission, kind of thing. And or you buy the rights to sell it, and then you have unlimited usage of it, and then it sits there until you make your profit. But even in that, with the ebooks, you automate it, it's fantastic, but you have to wait until they sell to get your money back, and then use the money that you get off of the sales to then buy more rights to sell more ebooks. And then you end up with a whole platform of ebooks, which you don't have to do nothing, because the only time they're going to contact you is when a link doesn't work. And then you're going to just give them a functional link because they already paid. You know? Outside of that, drop shipping is really hard, but you can make a lot of money off of it. But I want to give you guys ways to make money for yourselves without you having to kill yourselves trying to do it, because you're already working a full-time job. And if you go from working one full-time job to working two full-time jobs, you're not sleeping. And I don't want that. So I don't want you to have to deal with that neither. So I try to find ways for y'all to start doing something somewhat like a hobby, and then build yourself up to a scenario where it replaces a job that you don't like. And now you're doing something that you do like, you know, because I mean, I know everybody wants to get paid to play video games, but there's so many gamers out there and not a lot of paychecks for gamers. They don't even have a lot of paychecks for product testers, but it is a thing, you know. A lot of times the trade-off is that they'll give you the product for free and then you review the game. And as much as that may make you feel good, if I got GTA 6 for free right now and it don't get released till like this summer or some stuff like that, it still doesn't pay my bills. You know what I mean? So I just get to be the first person to beat the game, you know, and that you know that's the downside to some negotiations. You know, you have to find those affiliate negotiations where you get paid in advance for your efforts, so that even if the product don't sell, you already got paid. The risk is more on them because you're getting paid for promoting it. You're not getting paid for it selling anything. You know what I mean? And that's not what people think about with affiliate marketing. So we talk about ways to make money for yourself. We talk about ways to budget the money that you are getting from your current 9-to-5 job. And then we talk about ways to invest the extra money that you're not spending anymore so that your money can make more money for you in the future. And that is ways where your money can start going a lot further. And then you don't have to deal with as much other stuff. You know what I mean? So from there, we talk about today, Wednesday, different countries around the world that you invest in so that you can either live there or invest there and make money in different countries around the world, international. Trusts and offshore banks and all kinds of other stuff. So we try to set those things up for you so that you guys can see what's going on, so that you can have other alternatives with your finances. Then on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we give you guys information about your relationships, development topics, self-improvement, negotiations, networking, building your brand for your business, whether it is how you promote yourself to your employer to get raises and promotions, networking retirement, networking severance pay, you know, working on ways to get a better job, stuff like, or working on your early retirement, your 20-year plan, all of this stuff. Better decisions in your personal life, so that your decisions in your personal life is not costing you as much money, so that you don't have to earn as much money to cover your standard of living, which takes less stress off of your job. Because if you have to pressure your boss for raises and promotions and bonuses to cover your standard of living, and your boss isn't able or willing to give you that, you start developing resentment for your employer. Or if you work for yourself, you start raising prices on your product to offset your standard living, and then you lose guaranteed customers because they can no longer afford your product. So you went from a revolving door of guaranteed customers at a lower rate to sporadic customers at a higher rate. You might be making a little bit more money, but your income is now fluctuating instead of being guaranteed, and you have to make that adjustment, right? So instead of putting pressure on yourself financially by making bad financial decisions, you should give yourself more of a reprieve and then focus more on making strategic decisions for your employment, so that when you're making a change, it's not a change of desperation. Because when you're making a financial change of desperation, what happens is that you're willing to do more for less money just to get a little bit more to cover this emergency expense right now. But if you had financial freedom, you could wait for the better deal where you're getting paid more for less effort, so that the money that you got goes a lot further to the next deal. You also learn that in real estate. Instead of taking a job that will put $1,000 in your pocket after 7 months worth of work, you wait for the job that'll put $100,000 in your pocket for 2 months of work. But those types of jobs come less often than the first one. But the difference is that if you're trying to have a specific standard of living, you have to pick up a certain number of houses and put out a certain number of houses to get a paycheck, right? So that's what we do throughout the week. And then we have our Sundays, which is questions and comments from the fans. As long as your questions are appropriately structured, then and appropriately presented. Well, not just appropriately presented, but it's appropriate question and appropriately structured, because we have some individuals that have inappropriately asked questions, and I'm less often appreciating those, because while I understand trolling and internet humor, the fact is that we try to provide facts. We dig for the truth. I put a lot of effort into my research, and the people here, they come here to learn something, so I'm hoping to teach them something. So when you come and ask questions, it's because you genuinely want to learn something. You can linger if you want to, like and subscribe and mash those reaction buttons. You don't have to say anything, but when you do say something, I'm hoping that you're going to say something smart. Even if you don't agree with me, you can disagree with me, but don't say stuff that's inappropriate. Don't say stuff that, is going to compromise a child's train of thought as they grow up. Don't corrupt the development of the kids. You know what I'm saying? He said, I prefer real books bought from garage and estate sales. Now, Michael, you again are from 70 years ago. So you are from before the internet. So look, there we go. He disagreed. You are from the internet, from before the internet. You are from before color TV. So you can go to a bookstore or get you a real book from a garage sale or an estate sale, but you're not going to sell 100 copies of that one book. You're going to have to buy 100 of them and then sell 100 of them to 50 different people. Buy one, get one free, and try to figure out how to turn out a profit doing it the old school. But if you do an electronic book, it's a link, and they click the link after they pay the fee, and you only have to get that book one time, and they can prefer to listen to. And this is the part where young folks get lazy, Michael. You are going to read that real book that you got from the garage sale. Young Bucks is going to play the audio file of that book in the background while they're rolling a blunt and playing Madden with no sound on. So they'll hear the book, but their eyes are not retaining the information, just their ears. Yeah, that part. Which, that's a whole nother job. If you can articulate words clearly, you could get paid to read. Because in order to turn a written book into an audio file, somebody had to read it. And if it wasn't the original author, somebody got paid to read it. That's a whole nother gig. You're welcome. He said, have money allows you time to think. So what your next move is going to be, and that's going to create less stress in your life. Exactly. See, Michael got some wisdom to him. Now, today, being Wednesday, we talk about different countries around the world that we're going to invest in. And we're going to start off with the dream that a lot of people be thinking about. The one that you've been scrolling through on social media for months, maybe even years, where you're sitting in a quiet, minimalist cafe in a Tokyo side street, right? And you have this gentle hum of the city outside and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee in the air, where your laptop is open in front of you. And you're not on a vacation. You're living there, right? You're working your remote job, earning your salary from back home, but your life, your actual day-to-day life is in Japan. That's something that's really interesting. So he said, I'm 23, trapped in 71-year-old body. Yeah, for like 10 more years. You got that Benjamin Button syndrome for 10 more years. Now, as it relates to Japan, for years, this was just a fantasy for a lot of people, and it's a complicated dance of tourist visas that runs a gray area. But then Japan announced something, a proper official digital nomad visa recently. Now, the floodgates were supposed to be open. Finally, a legitimate pathway for remote workers to come and experience the incredible country, not just for 90 days with a tourist jaunt, but for a real life significant period. Now, you've done the math, your income meets the threshold, you've got your job, You've even started your Duolingo lessons, online teacher. You know, you're ready to pack your bags. You've proven that you have the money to live in Japan. You've got your remote job. You get the visa. You even get the coveted residence card in your hand. Well, at that moment, what if I told you that even with that card, it's almost impossible to actually live there? Because this is going to be the visa trap that has nothing to do with a missing piece of paper. And it's stopping hundreds of aspiring remote workers in their tracks. It's the critical, overlooked detail that turns the dream of living in Japan into a bureaucratic nightmare. What the government announced and what you actually get are two very, very different things. So let's start with that visa itself, because on the surface, it sounds like the golden ticket. In early 2024, Japan officially launched its visa for digital nomads, and the news spread like wildfire. We even covered it. We were talking about moving to Japan, dropping out a bunch of babies because they got the child care thing for everybody, and they pay for between 50 and 100% of the child's care. So you can have two adults and three children for the standard of living of two adults. That's good money. You could be living off of $8,000 in Japan, $15,000 with two people and three kids, two adults and three kids, right? Now, the requirements, while steep, seem straightforward enough, at least in the beginning. First, the big one was the income. You need to prove that you have an annual income of at least 10 million Japanese yen. And that's roughly in the neighborhood of 66,000 US dollars, which if you was working at a McDonald's or a Wendy's, that's doable. But let's be clear, this immediately prices out a huge number of people because the Japanese government wants to attract high income professionals who can contribute to the economy without taking local jobs. So if you can clear this hurdle, you feel like you've passed that first main test. Second, you have to be a citizen of one of the 49 countries that has a tax treaty with Japan. This list is going to include the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, and most of Europe. Pretty straightforward. So if you're in America, you're like, score. Now, look, that tax treaty means that Japan is going to tell the United States how much money you making over there, right? You file taxes in the US and then you give your tax papers to Japan and tell Japan that you gave taxes to the US, right? Unless the money is under a business, right? He said that the same with America, only if you can benefit America. Well, yes and no, because America, a lot of people are coming to America with a higher expectation of performance. They want mandatorily STEM, which is like tech and education and all this other stuff, applications primarily. And they're basically got a lot of people that are aiming for that $250,000 a year salary. The people are coming here and getting a job. I don't know of America offering a digital nomad expectation. I know America selling that $5 million golden visa with Donald Trump's face on it. But the yes part is that it does benefit America in order for them to come here. But with Japan, it's not so much just benefiting the country because they don't really give a shit if you're smart. They just want your money. America, you got to be smart. You're talking about with the H-1Bs, you got to have a master's degree or several master's degree, publications, and you're benefiting a company. See what I'm saying? And working here for that company. Or you're a small business that started up that's capable of functioning well in America, and you're hiring a bunch of American employees. You come over here and get a visa that way. work. I think it's like a work visa before you get citizenship, but it's not. Or you come here, you go to college, you get your student visa. But it's not like, yeah, hey, if you already make money in Japan and you want to come to America, you only need to make like $75,000. I haven't seen a visa like that in America yet. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just mean I ain't seen it yet. Now, the third thing that you must have is private health insurance. And some of us who are skating on that marketplace is probably not going to be able to make that work. But it has to be a serious coverage because marketplace ain't enough. So this is going to be because you likely won't have easy access to Japan's national health insurance system. Then finally, the duration of time. The visa lets you stay in Japan for up to 6 months. It's not renewable from within the country. So if you want to come back, you have to leave Japan after it expires and then reapply. This 6 months on, 6 months off cycle already feels more like an extended working holiday than a long-term living situation. We didn't know that. So you look at the list, you make over 10 million yen, check. You're from an eligible country, check. You can buy the insurance, check. You're okay with 6 months stay from now until they tell you to get out, check. You apply, you get the visa, you book your flight to Tokyo, dreaming of an apartment that you're trying to hunt for. You land at the airport, go through immigration, they hand you all the stuff that you need. The key to life in Japan, the plastic card every long-term resident has is the residency card or the Zairo card. You're done, right? You have that official ID, and this is where the dream begins to crumble, because this is the twist. The critical devastating detail isn't that you don't get the card, it's that the visa's strict 6-month non-renewable limit makes that card practically useless for setting up a normal life. So you're not considered a true medium to long-term resident in the eyes of the businesses that make life possible. You might think, so what? I have the card, I'm here legally, but that's a catastrophic misunderstanding of how modern Japan functions. To a landlord, a bank, or a phone company, a person who is legally required to leave in 6 months is not a resident. They are a temporary temporary visitor holding a fancy ID. It is the difference between visiting Japan and living in Japan. And that is the visa trap. He said, a lot of Japan are educated here in America, graduate with master's degrees, and return to work in Japan. Right. But the people in Japan that want citizenship have to come to America with master's degrees. So if you get a master's degree from America, go back home, then come back to America and get citizenship, America expects you to have a better education, better skill set, more knowledge of the country, and then get a better paying job than the American people that work here. And I'm gonna be honest with you, that last one, I don't give two shits about. The rest of it, I'm like, yo, that's dirty. How do they expect you who does not belong here to know more about those who belong here's cut? That's like saying, in order for me to come and spend the night by your house, I got to know more about your house than you. I got to cook better than you. I got to clean better than you. I got to know more about your property than you do so that I can stay a couple nights at your house. You don't got to know shit. You don't got to do shit. But you can stay there just fine. I'm like, that's dirty. But giving citizenship to a non-American requires them to be a cut above the rest. So they got to be better than the rest of us. That makes them highly competitive over there because the American dream is to come to America and spend so much money to be here, where you're thinking in Japan at 15 or 20,000 a year is good money in Japan. And you're thinking of that $250,000 a year job in America, and you're thinking, oh, I'll be rich. And then you get to California, because that's where everybody's flocking to, California, New York, stuff like that. And that $250,000 is right outside the project. When they get here, the amount of money they have to pay to stay here, that $250,000 job would have been just as good as staying back home and getting $40,000 a year in Japan to do the work in Japan. Crazy. Now, here's a funny thing. The short-term nature of that visa isn't a minor inconvenience. It is a systemic barrier because it's going to create a domino effect of rejection that the visa's flashy announcement completely glosses over. So let's break down why this is such a monumental problem. First, and most importantly, housing. Your dream of renting a cozy apartment is, for all intents and purposes, dead on arrival. The Japanese rental market is tough for foreigners, even with long-term visas. For someone on a 6-month timer, it is a brick wall. Here's how it works. You walk into the real estate agency, they'll ask for your residence card, you show it to them, they see your visa status and the 6-month expiration date. To a landlord, a tenant who is guaranteed to leave in half a year is a massive risk and a hassle. They want stability. They want 2-year contracts. The answer in 99% of cases will be a polite but firm no. Gets worse. To secure a rental contract, you almost always need a guarantor company to insure the landlord against you failing to pay the rent. To even apply for a guarantor service, they'll look at your residence status. 6-month visa, you're not a good bet. No guarantor, no apartment. It's a perfect, inescapable catch-22. Special shout out to Battle Zone. Good job, my boy. I said California is ghetto today. You don't want to live in California. It's called the brown state because all of the crap on the ground. Well, they didn't do a good job of cleaning up after they set it on fire and then flooded it out. That was a lot of chemicals they burned. The state burned for almost 2 months. So I feel like they would still have some remnants of that massive forest fire because they don't get a lot of rain out there. So I would assume, because it's not like they got a filtration system that's watering their forest, that they still got a lot of debris going around. So but there's a lot more people that throw stuff on the ground, like people who throw cigarettes, because California is probably the largest state in the country, largest population in the country. I think Florida's number 3. You got like California, Texas, then Florida, something like that. But people who smoke litter because when they're finished with whatever they're smoking, whether it's a blunt, whether it's a cigarette, a joint, tunchi, whatever they're smoking, when they get to the butt, they flick it on the ground. They don't put it into a container. They don't put it out and distinguish the ember before they dispose of it. They just flick it out of their hand. They just flick it out of their car. They just drop it down and they'll stomp on it and assume that because they stomped on it that they put it out. But if they stomped on it and the portion of it that they stomped on wasn't the ember, they flattened the cigarette, but the ember can catch wind and go into the brush and start another brush fire and set California on fire again for 2026. So, that's going to be one of the reasons why there's a lot of brown crap on the ground. So, because they don't have as many community service workers as Florida. Florida, you come on vacation, you leave on probation. So everybody is out there getting got with that. But when we're looking at in Japan, what housing options you have. Uh, you're pushed into the world of expensive temporary lodging, Airbnbs, weekly mansions, long stay hotels, or maybe a room in a share house. So you're not building a home, you're just paying a premium to live out of a suitcase for 6 months. He said, fentanyl shuffle in the state dance. You ain't gonna do too many shuffles if you mess with that fentanyl. We used to have angel dust and cocaine laced in the marijuana back in the day. Now they doing fentanyl. Kids ain't lasting no more. I think fentanyl is worse than the Tide Pod challenge when them kids was swallowing them Tide Pods. I don't even know how they started that. Whose big idea was it to hold a Tide Pod in your mouth until it dissolved? Like what challenge is that? You know, back when we were kids, we used to dare each other to walk into a abandoned house because we thought it was haunted. Now it's like, I dare you to chug on some chlorine. It's crazy. Um, Look, our second major problem in Japan is going to be our banking system. You need a Japanese bank account for almost everything. But to open a standard bank account in Japan, most major banks require you to have been a resident for at least 6 months. Now, the irony is going to be thick enough to cut this with a knife because by the time you qualify, your visa is expiring. So you'll likely be rejected or offered a highly restrictive non-residential account that isn't useful for daily life. So you're forced to rely on cash from 7-Eleven ATMs, constantly getting hit with international fees, unless you have a bank from your home country that also exists in their country, which is something that you can pay attention to before you go over there. Another thing that you could probably try to do is if you've been there for almost 6 months, where you're like a couple days away, like on your way out of the country, you get your bank account. So, for example, you've got a 6 month residency card. This is going to be a trick. It is going to be a tough trick. You get your 6-month visa. Now, you book your plane ticket for that afternoon after the banks close. Then you go to the bank on your plane ticket to leave is after that bank closes. You would have been there for 6 months. You open the account, put your little bit of chunk change in that account, catch your plane and get out. Then when you come back, the account's already there. It's a tightrope walk, because if you can't get a flight out after the bank closes, and then you get up too late, and then you can't find a bank that's open or whatever the case may be. If your exit date is on a weekend, interferes with your, or a holiday, it interferes with your success, because you would have to do it on your last day to say that you have been living in the country as of today 180 days in order to get that, meet that stipulation, right? The next issue you're going to have is going to be your phone, because unless you're going to bring a phone with you and pay American prices, if you want a normal monthly plan from a major carrier in their country, like Docomo or SoftBank, they're going to ask for that residency card again and a Japanese bank account for payment options. So since the account is going to be a no-go, it is going to be hard to get a phone contract. I'll just bring my phone from America, but you'll find yourself stuck with a pricey prepaid SIM card or specific providers from foreign entities like T-Mobile. Then you're going to have another constant reminder that you're not part of the system. I don't really care, but I know a lot of people do. They want to be integrated. I just want to be there. Bro, if I could buy a plot of land If I can buy a plot of land with a hut on the property, I'll come back in a year and I'll try to build on that. I'm gonna use some of Michael's advice. Just buy you some land, buy you a bunch of land next to one another, pay the property taxes on it, then come back next year and build a house. Then I don't have to deal with the whole lodging situation. But then finally, there's going to be a bureaucratic exclusion because you can't secure a long-term apartment. You can't easily register your address at the local city office. And this registration is the getaway to many public services, with most notably the national health insurance. And while your visa requires private insurance, Japanese national systems is what you want for affordable, seamless care. But without a registered permanent address, enrolling in that is going to become a huge challenge, if not impossible altogether. So you're outside the public health care system. That is one of the best parts of living in Japan. And in every practical sense, this visa doesn't allow you to live in Japan. It allows you to stay in Japan, which is different. So you're in that bureaucratic limbo, unable to build the basic scaffolding of a stable life. The trap isn't one specific rule. It's the entire system seeing your 6-month expiration date and shutting you out. Now, I don't know that the situation that we're looking at right now seems a bit bleak, but the digital nomad visa is a flawed product for anyone who wants to genuinely settle in. But that doesn't mean that the dream is dead. It just means that you have to be a little bit smarter about it. First, if we're thinking outside of the box, you got some workarounds. If you're set on this particular type of visa, because you have to embrace a life of temporary solutions. For housing, your world is going to be shared housing like Sukaro houses. That's serviced apartments or monthly mansions, right? They're designed for people in your exact situation, taking credit cards and not requiring guarantors. Perfectly fine. They cost a little bit more, but they are your only real option at this point. For banking, a phone service. Rely on your accounts from home. Use services like Wise and get a premium prepaid SIM from a company like Mobile that cater to foreigners. It's a life of compromises, but it's possible. What else do you have is real solutions. Recognize the digital nomad visa for what it is, a long-term tourist visa with work rights. If your goal is to actually live in Japan, you have to look at other more robust visa options that grant you real renewable residency status from day one. The premier option for a serious freelancer is the business manager visa. This involves setting up your own company in Japan, essentially making yourself your own employer. Now, you're generally going to need to invest at least 5 million yen, which is about 33 US dollars, to create a solid business plan and rent a small office space. It's going to be a serious setup, but it gets you a 1-year renewable visa and all the important residence cards that actually works. And one of the funny things about this is when I was talking to you guys about this business visa, I was talking to you guys about going over there, starting up a real estate business. If you hire 2 locals to help you run the business, they'll cover some of the expenses, which could potentially cover their salary for the first 18 months. If you're buying and holding properties, renovating them out, and then renting them out, you can start turning over revenue. You get to stay there for a year. And as long as you're generating that revenue from America to cover this investment, because of the because of the tax treaty. The United States gives you tax deductions of, I do believe, up to between 150 or $250,000 of expenses in Japan towards your American business that is a international business now, right? So with this type of scenario, you can rent an apartment, open a bank account. You want to open a business bank account, even if you open a personal bank account too, and then you want to join the national health insurance where you can start living a normal life. Irony here, the business could flop, but if you get the long-term visa, you're still good to go. You just got to want to make sure that that 33 grand stretch you the whole year. But I would prefer the business not flop. I'd prefer that the business is successful. Now, another fantastic option is the highly skilled for professional, or HSP visa. Talent. You get points for your high salary, education, and professional experience. An IT professional earns over 10 million yen, can easily qualify. This visa comes with a 5-year period of stay and a fast track to permanent residency. It's a Japan rolling out red carpet for real quality residencies. Starting to sound like what Donald Trump is doing. Finally, there's going to be a student visa, and this is going to be that foot in the door strategy. Enroll in 1 or 2 years of Japanese language school courses, and this is going to grant you a student visa, and with it, proper residency card. Suddenly, all your doors are going to open, and you can rent an apartment, open up a bank account, and get a phone. You're allowed to work part-time, up to 28 hours a week, and that's going to supplement your remote income while you learn the language. An investment that will pay off for the rest of your life in Japan. It solves the residency problem and sets you up perfectly for a long-term future. Now, the Japanese government made a lot of noise about the digital nomad visa because a digital nomad visa allows you to get paid from somewhere else to live there. But the reality is going to be a pure letdown, because truth is that you would do better if you're getting paid off of your computer to cover your standard of living and still go over there and start up your brick and mortar business over there. So if you're doing a real estate business in America, let's say you're teaching online, or you got a art studio or whatever you got online, if you're a podcaster or whatever you got going on where you're making money, make money for you, but you go over there and you bring your, I would do a C corporation, bring it over there and do a foreign domestic C corporation. That's how I would do it, because an LLC is only going to go so far. And I would set up a C corporation, international setup. And with that, start buying properties. Remember, we said you got to do like $33,000. If you start buying properties under the business, even without a brick and mortar business sitting there, one of those pieces of land you can develop a building on and turn that into your office. You can build it, not only turn it into an office, but put a living space in that building, and then you can stay there and work out of your house. You started the business, you're the only employee there. The credit that they offer you requires you to hire people. The credit is not limited to when you start the business, but sometime within the shortest period of time from when you started to, I think 5 years is somewhere in there. Within the first, I think, year or two, you should meet that threshold of hiring some employees. And if you do, then you qualify for that credit. But that credit is like a reimbursement. But if you use the reimbursement to like cover the salary, because it's like 23,000 US dollars is what they would give you as a credit, which in their currency, it's probably about 18 months worth of salary for 2 employees to work for you. So if you started the business within the first 6 months and then you started generating enough effort where you've got money coming in to cover some extra people, and then you hire those people in there. By the time you got that far, you would have spent enough money to cover the qualifications for that credit, and now you got two people renting out your properties for you. You're still making extra money on your own, but now you got two people helping you make extra money, and that could lead you to really growing a big real estate property. Because if you've got one person at each property as a property manager, and they're getting paid a salary to like, if you buy like a really cheap apartment complex, you buy two of them and you build it up a little bit, and then you have one property manager over there and one property manager over there, they're both working for your real estate development company. You've got two properties, they're collecting rent for you. You don't got to go to those places on a regular basis. You can just go and buy you a third. You're getting yourself off the ground. It's easier to think about on paper. There's a lot of red tape about it. You got to go through the embassy. Yes, you can buy real estate from Japan without having to have a business, and you don't need a local to help you do it, but you do have to pay attention to the local laws, zoning. They have the ability to rezone. Their government is highly involved in the real estate market, so you're going to have to get approvals for every single thing. You can't dig a ditch without them giving you the green lights, and sometimes it takes up to 5 years to complete a development opportunity. So it's not like it's going to be like, oh, and you have everything done inside of a year and a half. But what you can do is you can get things started. You can snail pace it, and if you did that, your business is being set up, your bank accounts are being set up, you're starting to wire transfer money from America, you're still making extra money while you're doing this. So you're not at a loss for finances if you're spending less money than you're making while you're doing this, and then the money that you're spending is a tax deduction. So you'll find yourself in a financially better position because it's cheaper to be in Japan than it is to be in America. But I mean, while we complain about the fact that they're going to make us stay in little mini mansions because we're a foreigner, I kind of feel like we would be living a life of kings, because if we're over there with a 30-foot ceiling and tile all over the place, we would feel a whole lot better than what we would with the 10-foot popcorn ceiling and carpet everywhere. You know what I mean? So it's not as bad as you think. It's just not as good as we hoped. So the Japanese government did make a lot of noise about that digital nomad visa, and it really did let us down. It really, really let us down. But it just started, though. But this is where you guys come in, because you have to look into this visa. You have to try to apply. And then you have to ask yourself, if you've done this before, have you found success with the business manager or the HSP visas as a better option for remote work? And if you did, you got to share your story with me, because your advice in the comment section below is going to help a lot more people understand this. The more that we share, the more people we can save from failing and end up falling into a trap. Because one of the problems that you have with, and Japan is more strict than America. America, you seen, we had people in our country for 15, 20 years, and our paperwork wasn't right. Them motherfuckers is gonna deport your ass. If you ain't on the first flight out, they knocking on your hut. They be bill collector knocking on your door. You know, you got somebody in America call you up. Hey, I'm calling on behalf of, not in Japan. They knocking on your door. They knocking on your door. Where your daddy at? Tell him he still owe me money. I'm gonna repossess your bicycle. Walk to school now. You know what I mean? But your experience could be the key that helps someone else achieve their Japanese dream, because one of the biggest parts about getting over it, and this is why I tell you guys, you got to do your research. You got to do your research, because while we have the traditional wives in Japan, the family-oriented women in Japan, and while we have some opportunities for employment depending on what your skill set is, we look at if we're bringing our $70,000 a year income over there, that it is easier for us to touch down and not financially suffer. But digital nomad visas just started coming out. Business visas have been out for a while, and business visas give you at least 1 year. To me, I would be firsthand doing my research on a business visa. And the reason why is because why do I want to just bring my money from somewhere else when I can start making money here? See what I'm saying? I want more money. If I'm going to live here, I want more money coming from here. Now, yeah, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, yeah, but they're not going to charge you taxes if you're, getting your money from outside of the country. True. But whatever country it's coming from is going to tax you. And I'm pretty sure the taxes in America is worse than taxes in Japan. They offer a lot of deductions, but they offer a lot of deductions for big business. They don't offer a lot of deductions for individual people. So if you are trying to make it using the American tax system, your best bet would be to start up a business in the US, make it a C corporation, bring that C corporation to Japan, start up an international branch in Japan, foreign domestic, and then expand on your business. And the one business that is capable of getting off the ground with the least amount of difficulty, real estate. Because you can buy a strip mall. You can buy a strip mall. You can buy a parking lot with like 13 different business offices in it, and then you can rent it out to the locals, and then hire somebody to clean the parking lot and collect the rent. And you can do that twice, and now you got 2 employees. You know what I mean? So there's always a way around what you're trying to accomplish. You just have to figure it out, because you could go over there and open up a restaurant. It's easy to open up a restaurant if you pick you up a spot, set up the kitchen equipment. Again, you're going to be spending $30,000, $50,000. You set up the equipment, you hire a cook and a dishwasher, or a dishwasher and a server, or a cook and a server. That's your 2 people. You met the requirement. You can set you up a little business of it. And then if the second floor is a suite, like an in-law suite or something like that on the second floor, you can live on the second floor and have your employees working on the first floor. Your residency problem is covered. If you're trying to find a place to live with, like, for the permanent residency while trying to get yourself established, there's too many grassroots involved. You have to get temporary housing, get yourself long-term established, and then migrate from temporary to long-term housing. Really, you go over there with your temporary housing with enough money to buy permanent housing, and then you transition there. Because again, this doesn't work with landlord, but if you bought a house, but again, if you're buying a house, you're like $250,000 for a house. But if you got $250,000 for a house, there are other types of visas that Japan might look into for you. You know what I mean? These are just the cheapest ones that you can get your hands on. And with that being said, if you want more real talks about this, especially if you're thinking about moving to Japan for a long period of time, make sure that you guys subscribe and hit the like button, as well as that notification bell, because we are going to be cutting through a lot of the hype and giving you the advice that you actually need. Because next week, my word is born to Michael, we're going to be talking about South Korea, and we're going to be talking about how South Korea is better than Japan. I've been watching a lot of K-pop drama, so I'm all about trying to get me one of them Korean girls, because they are just so cute, and so are the Japanese girls, and so are the Vietnamese girls. But I just love that accent from the Thailand girls and the Filipino girls. But all of the women in them countries are still traditional, family-oriented women that have a lot more respect for their men than the American women. So I mean, I ain't got no beef with the American women, but I mean, as a dude, I kind of want to be respected. And if I got to spend $500,000 to go to another country to be respected, I don't care what you call me as a passport, bro. Because any man that is willing to spend $250,000 to find happiness makes the women that he left behind have to stop and think, what is wrong with us that they spent all that money to go over there? And until you ask yourself that and really tell yourself the truth, you are not going to know why you are over 35, single, and unable to find commitment. I ain't got no beef with y'all. I ain't got no beef with y'all. I'm talking about single woman, 1 or 2 kids, 35 years old, still willing to have 2 more kids. There's still hope for you. But it comes with certain criteria that y'all not really willing to do. And it's, in my opinion, as a man, it's not too much to ask. But ego wise, it sounds like I'm asking for too much. It sounds like a lot of men are asking for too much. I respect that. But when you think about how the men treat the women in Japan, and you think about how women in Asia do prefer women, men in America, because the men in America provide more affection to the women in Asia that they don't get from the men in Asia, really, you are giving up affection. That's what you get when you're losing your American guy for a foreign guy. Because that foreign guy ain't gonna give you extra. See what I'm saying? The trade-off for the women isn't really, because this is one of the things that I think about. When a man is going to a Western culture, the women are going to be more alpha. When a woman is going to an Eastern culture, the men are going to be more alpha. So when the passport bros travel to East Asia, we will find more of what we're looking for. But when the women get a man from East Asia, they're going to get more of what we are in America, just less feminine about it. Because the American men getting soft. The Asian men are like, pop. What you? I don't know how to speak that language. I'm going to learn though. So you got to ask yourself, what is the final verdict on a Japanese digital nomad visa? Is it a trap for you? An elegantly laid out trap with high income bait that distracts from the fundamental flaw? Because if it's promising a dream of living in Japan, but delivering the frustrating reality of being a high spending tourist for 6 months, the irony is going to be that Japan is going to need the exact talent that this visa is meant to attract. And then they're creating a product that's totally misaligning them with the remote workers that actually want the stability and integration. So while the visa trap isn't the lack of a card, it's being given a key that doesn't unlock any of the right doors. But it's new. It came out in 24, it's 26, it's only been around for 2 years. It usually takes 5 or 10 years for a government for the people in the government to reinforce governmental laws. And anything that is foundationally driven off of tradition is going to be harder for traditions to change. So the temporary residency that's guaranteeing you 6 months instead of 30 days, instead of 90 days, instead of getting 3 months, you're getting 6 months, but you're not getting a full 12. The fact is that they found the intermediate. You go for, but then when you think about, if you're a digital nomad, you're usually not living there as a digital nomad. A digital nomad, you're going on a 6-month vacation, but you're still working. 4 to 6 month vacation, but you're still working. If you're moving over there, you typically start up a business. That's why they had the business visa. They don't consider the option of what if you're super rich and you don't have to work, you just get direct deposits from your trust account. What kind of visa covers that? And that's what we have to be looking into. So when you recognize what you're trying to accomplish versus what they have to offer, you have to have a proven source of where your money is. But Japan, through a specific visa, has decided that it doesn't want you to have a life that you want over there, even if you have the qualified money. So you have to find another way to get your money over there and then use your money to buy the right status. And it's just like buying that $5 million status in America. You go over there and buy the right status. Buy you a bit. You can set you up a bullshit ass bit. You know what? You know what's funny? An already established business over there, you could joint venture with that business. That's another thing. Your business could be a BDC where you buy into 5 or 7 existing businesses as your business. That's still taking a lot of money, but you start covering the financial overhead of some businesses and they're paying you interest returns on that. That's your business. Either way, whatever kind of business you set up that's governed by their laws and under their red tape or whatever, it gives you that foundation of first 12 months, which gives you the ability to establish everything else. And only when you're depositing from your American accounts $70,000 a year, when you can clearly live off of 30,000, you can clearly live off of less than $3,000 a month, which is like $36,000 a year, and you'd be fine. In certain areas like Nagano, Nagoya, Osaka, you don't have to really live in Tokyo, right? You can find a nice quiet place in a rural location, get settled in, establish something that doesn't exist there, and build from there. The first 12 months of your business visa is your ability to figure out what's needed and build on that. And then when you leave and come back, you set up another. Or if it's a instant renewable, you can get in on the 12th month, and then 11 months in or 10 months in, you start working on your renewal so that you can extend your stay while you expand your business. As long as you're bringing in enough money to cover your standard of living, there's not going to be that many complaints. So you got to understand that without the right knowledge and the right tools, the dream is not really over. It just requires a new strategy. So don't fall for the flashy news lines. Look at the real proven paths, because a business manager visa, the high skilled professional visa, and even a student visa, these are the real golden tickets. And since you need to learn the language anyway, since you didn't learn it before you went over there, I would do a student visa while I figure out how to set up my manager visa. So by the time I finish learning the language, I know how to buy property, right? But when you realize these are going to be the paths that will lead a real residence card with power to your hands and your pockets, where you can end up with those bank accounts that you're looking for, all the way down to the apartments and the houses that you're trying to pick up, and to a genuine life that this beautiful, complex country will offer you, with a very wholesome and family-oriented environment, which means that if you're there long enough, you could find yourself, if you're not a shut-in, integrated with the neighborhood. If you positively interact with the locals, you will find yourself building a network very quickly, which will allow you to find business opportunities very quickly. And if you have the capital to invest, you're likely going to be able to get that manager visa off the ground very quickly. The front door may be a trap, but the side door, a window, there's always a window wide open. And it's waiting for those who are serious enough to find those hidden opportunities beyond the red tape and past the hype, past the headlines. So I know we covered a little bit. We didn't cover a lot. But next week, we're going to be talking about what's different between South Korea and Japan. So I want you guys to make sure that you come back for that. And because we're going to be doing a lot of digging, and we're going to be doing a lot of pros and cons and whatnot. And then we got some good episodes coming up for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We got the rest of this week up there, and we're going to start putting up Monday and Tuesday for next week up there. So you're going to start seeing a lot of next week start popping up already. So I want you guys to stay tuned for that. On our way out, I want to go ahead and say, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. And then fellas, I give you all this information to help y'all become higher value men, because when you really think about it, there are so many different opportunities in life. And we didn't know that all of this stuff existed, but it's been at our fingertips since 2009. And If we stop just watching social media for the sake of entertainment and start watching social media for the sake of growth, we will find that American TikTok theory, that is the algorithm, we will find ourselves learning way more stuff. If you prioritize your time to benefit yourself instead of prioritizing your time to entertain yourself, you will find yourself learning enough stuff to change your dynamics. Instead of thinking it's hopeless, instead of thinking that I can't do it, always look for another way. Take can't out of your vocabulary. I can. I just need to figure out how. I might need help. I might need a partner. I might need a venture capitalist. I might need a co-conspirator. Whatever I need to get this accomplished, I got to figure out who I need to talk to back me on this. Because you might not be able to get it done by yourself, but in a group, in a good network, you can find your way in. So you have to pay attention to the things in your life that are inside of your control that you don't like, that you're going to put effort into changing. And that gives you the ability to navigate around the things that are outside of your control. Then, ladies, while this is a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, you too can benefit from the information that we're giving you, because by focusing on your long-term goals, not your now, not your in the moment, your 10-year and your 20-year plan, you can then navigate ways where you can proactively make improvements in achieving your goal. And along the way, you will find a partner that has the same drive for success and potentially similar goals. And that would be the person that you can capitalize with. So instead of focusing on how much money he's willing to spend, focus on how much effort he's willing to enforce on meeting your success. Where your success is his success, as well as his success being your success. With that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command.